Hello, everyone, and good morning. Welcome to our live feed update for September 22nd. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and I am here today on my own to talk to you about everything that happened yesterday on the Big Brother 23 live feeds. It was day 77 in the house, and nothing happened. Nothing at all. This is going to be a quick update. There wasn't even a ridiculous fight to talk about. There's really very little to give you here today. So we're going to make it quick. Not every update needs to be a long one. I don't want to waste your time. There's going to be lots of content for you today to enjoy because Survivor is premiering tonight. And then we have a Big Brother episode, and there's going to be the know-it-alls tonight, and we're going to recap the episode late tonight. So there's plenty of stuff for you guys. Let's get through today here on the update, and we'll be back tomorrow with maybe a little more. Who knows? So here we go. Let's talk through the day here. We started the day with Xavier and Azah. Now Xavier, of course, is the HOH nominated Azah and Kylan for eviction. He also won the veto. He plans to not use the veto to allow Big D, who he has convinced to evict Kylan. Big D planning to evict Kylan, but he doesn't feel great about it. He feels bad. He feels like Kylan deserves to be there. He's done so much with Kylan. He's manipulated. I don't want to say manipulated. I've been with Kylan for so long. And so he's feeling very bad about it, and that's causing him to kind of lash out, I guess, a little bit more at Azah. They had a fight the other day where he was saying that she didn't really do anything in the game and all of that. And so that's what happened the night before. So Azah wakes up the next morning, talks to Xavier some more about it. They complain about Big D a bit, and Xavier tells Azah, "Look, here's the solution. You guys just need to stop talking about what you've done in the game." And I think that this is really great advice from Xavier. And I think that Xavier should also take this advice. I think that everybody in this house should take this advice because nobody's looking good when they're talking about their game this season. But that's that. There's still a little bit of, frustration, tension, whatever going on here between Big D and Azah in the morning. But the game is the day is going to progress pretty slowly. They're hanging out, they're doing their tests, they're doing all this stuff. Big D is going to talk about dating in Philadelphia and how it's tough, and they try to give Big D some advice for how. I mean, this is stuff I would normally just gloss over, but there's really nothing else. If you're interested in listening to Big D talk about dating, I mean, look, there's been a lot of these conversations, and quite frankly, some weird opinions and things going on with some of these people. But they talk about that. Big D is going to talk with Kylan, and he finds out that Kylan has not watched Dragon Ball Super, and so he's going to explain like the whole plot of Dragon Ball. Is it Dragon Ball Z Super or Dragon Ball Super? I think it's Dragon Ball Z Super. Or it's just Dragon Ball Super. I was right the first time. But he explains all of Dragon Ball Super to Kylan. Unfortunately, there's nothing in there that could have explained to Kylan that Goku shouldn't be doing things. Because I mean, look, Goku does lots of silly things in Dragon Ball Super as well. Kylan. Okay, so here's one thing. There's two non-game related things that happen here today that you may find interesting. One is that throughout a good portion of this season, there has been a mystery. There has been a question. Kylan, he likes to sniff things. Why does he like to sniff things? Now, we may not get an answer to why he sniffs all the things, but we did get an answer to why he sniffs one particular thing. And it's been confounding people. He likes to take tortillas and put them like on his face and sniff them. And people have been like, why does he do this? This is strange. What a weirdo. However, while he is making some food, he goes, this one smells like soap. And Azza from the living room was like, what do you mean? Why does it smell like soap? And he says, oh, well, what happens is production washes, I guess, all of their food because of COVID. And so they wash the package with soap. And so what Kyland has apparently noticed is that sometimes the soap like seeps through the package, and the outer tortillas in the stack can sometimes taste a little soapy. So he sniffs them to see if he can smell any soap before he eats them so that he doesn't have to taste a soapy tortilla. And he's like, you haven't noticed that at all? And she goes, no. And so, I mean, mystery solved. This is apparently why he smells the tortillas. Now, nobody else seems to have noticed, but I have no idea personally. But there you go. We have an explanation. I think probably. Anyway, after Kyland leaves, after a while, I mean, like a few hours later, Xavier and Oz are going to be talking about Kyland. Big D ends up coming into the living room. He's going to talk about Kyland as well. And they're just going to be complaining about Kyland. Ozza talking about how Kyland gaslights people. And the more they give him the opportunity, the more he's probably going to be gaslighting you. And so they talk about like, oh, man, can you imagine what's going to happen when he finds out that he's going to go home tomorrow? And Xavier's like, he's not finding out tomorrow. He's not finding out until the day. Honestly, he's probably not finding out until during the live show. He's like, I'll like maybe we'll tell him then. Like while the live show is happening. And because we would tell anybody else. Like we've totally been very upfront with all of our things prior to this, but it's just specifically with Kyland, we would not want to tell him. And so they talk about like they go through, okay, so they're going to tell Kyland, they're not going to blindside Kyland, but they're going to tell Kyland during the live show prior to his eviction. Big D's like, oh, well, what I was going to do is get up and give a speech that was like, well, that how I've played this game from day one is that nobody is safe. And so, Azza, I'm sorry, but Kyland, I'm evicting you. Which I really want to have happen. So hopefully they chicken out on informing him prior to that, because quite frankly, I expect that they will. And hopefully Big D actually does that, because that would be, if Big D gave me that, look, he's still dead to me because of the Brent thing. But if Big D gave me that, he'd still be dead to me. But I would really appreciate it. I would. It would be a step forward in repairing our relationship. Okay? So we'll see what happens there. And really, I'm almost out of things already. Honestly, the biggest thing, and if I were to do this update and just give you like the only actual thing that mattered in the day, I would just tell you this: Big D and Azza made up. Boom, end of day. That's the only thing that mattered. Big D and Azza later into the night have a reconciliation conversation. We can get into the details because it was still pretty silly, but Azza's basically like, look, Big D, because they were talking about Kyland, and that was kind of a healing conversation. And Big D continued to talk about like how difficult it is for him to evict Kyland, and he was getting a little bit more understanding from Azza. And so Azza is like, look, at least now you know that if you throw fire, I usually don't throw fire, but once in a while, I'm going to throw fire back. And Big D's like, well, I don't think I threw fire. I mean, I never cursed at you or anything. You did say you didn't give an F. All right. Well, that's not cursing at you. That's just a general statement. You cursed at me way more times. And she said, well, no. I said I don't give an F about what's happening outside this house. And it's like, is this about to fall? It's just like spiral out again. He's like, well, he says, well, we're not going to revisit this, but you said way more Fs than me. We're not going to revisit, but you definitely did way more than me. She says, look, what I'm saying is, in general, if you throw fire, most of the time I will not respond with fire, but sometimes I will. Okay. And it's clear that like there's not really a resolution here, but they do sort of like get to a place where they just start joking around about it, and that's like a much better place for them. They just start joking like, outside this house we're gonna be at each other's throats, in a fun way. And he starts talking about Kyland again, and again, I think that what Big D is genuinely looking for is just a little bit of empathy for having to cut Kyland. Now, of course, it's pretty ridiculous that he feels bad for cutting Kyland, but he does. He genuinely feels bad about it, and that is, it's something that Xavier and Azza haven't exactly been very empathetic toward, because why would you? If you're Azza, especially, like, why should you have to feel bad that your friend who shouldn't be even thinking about cutting you feels bad about not cutting you? But it's what he's looking for, and he's going to get a little bit more of it here. He says, it just feels bad when you feel like you've manipulated. Well, I won't say manipulate, but I've been with him all season long, and I'm going to have to like be the one to evict him. But I am going to do it. That's not what I'm saying. I just feel bad about it. And Azza says she understands. And she says, look, I've made it clear to X that I'm not taking him to the final two. And that means for you, because you know that he's made it clear to me he's not taking me to the final two, that you are guaranteed final two if you take Kyland out of this game. And he says, yeah, I just, the Kai that people never get to see is the Kai that you hear about in those letters. You guys, you don't like him because you don't see that side of him. And, maybe he's playing me, whatever, but like, that's the Kai that I see. He's talking about that. They go on to talk about the final two. And he says, about Azza saying to Xavier she wouldn't take him, like, of course you wouldn't take him. You would lose to Xavier. If you think you could win next to Xavier, Azza, you are out of your mind. And she says, then why are you taking? You think you can win next to Xavier? He says, yep. He's like, okay, well, how about this, Big D? I think I can beat everybody because I believe in myself. He says, okay, all right. Think what you want. I just know that I lose to you, Azza. Like, what? What do you mean? You lose to me? Yeah, I lose to you, but you beat X. Yes. What? Can you explain that, Big D? He says, sure. He says, look, I started the cookout. I managed the cookout, brought the cookout to the most successful alliance in history. Me and Xavier made very similar moves because we talked, made sure targets were in place weeks before, ahead of time. We also made sure that if somebody needed to manipulate it, we would both manipulate that same person, and then he would come in, and then we made sure we had control of the house at all times. And so we made very similar moves. And he's just won a little more competitions. That's the only difference. And okay, and why can't you beat me? Well, you haven't lied to anybody. You haven't gotten your hands dirty. You won an HOH. You have like good relationships on the jury. Now remember, Big D has said many times he believes that a woman will beat a man in the final two because there is a majority of women on the jury. But Xavier, after Hannah told Xavier that was disrespectful because Xavier used to say the same thing, Xavier talked to Big D and told Big D it's disrespectful and that he shouldn't say it. So Big D is now trying to come up with other reasons for why he thinks he would lose to Azah in the final two. And Azah says, okay, hold on. Okay, so you think you can't beat me because of those things, because I have good relationships on the jury. I haven't lied. People respect that. How come Xavier can beat me, but you can't? He goes, well, because if Xavier's there and I'm not there, then he'll be able to take credit for everything that I did. He'll be able to act like it was all him and not me. She goes, okay, but if you were there and not Xavier, couldn't you do the same thing? No. It doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Goes, oh, I just don't understand. He's like, I knew you look, you might have a different opinion. That's fine. That's you're a data person. I just see it the way I see it. All right. Oh man. So he goes on. Because look, they can't resolve any conversations because there's no resolution to this. But they move on. And they start talking about again the vote and how he's gonna have to evict Kylan, and so he starts talking. And this is the second non-game related thing that got maybe a little bit resolved here. He says he goes, yeah, I'm gonna have to get up there. I'm gonna say I cast to a vote. She goes, ha, cast to a vote. That's funny. Like I Vic to a vote, like Dina Lohan. Good joke. And he's like, oh no, I always say cast to a vote. She goes, oh well, I mean I say I vote to evict. And he says, oh yeah, that's the other. I also say I evict. Yeah, I say evict. There you go. Good joke. So that's the day. How are you guys? Do you have any questions for me at the end of this podcast before we wrap up this quick little update? It's not much else to talk about here through the day as we look toward the eviction tomorrow, where Kylan will go and we'll get our final three. What order am I going to do the game recaps? It will probably be Xavier, Azah, Big D. How did I stay alive having to watch all of this? Just one more week. That's what you say. Just one more week. Who do I want to win? I talked about this on the roundtable, but my ideal scenario is that Azah wins the final 3 HOH and that Xavier convinces her to take him to the final 2. That would be the most satisfying gameplay ending for the season. Let's see here. What are the odds that Big D flips live? I would say very low at this point. Very low odds. Yeah, I don't see it happening. It's been so it's been so long that he's been on this track. And he understands now where he didn't before, that like he's guaranteed final two if he cuts Kylan. Plus, their arguments have not, you know, gone very well. Is there any way that Azah would take X over Big D if he keeps putting her down? I've said this before. I do think it's possible. I said I don't think it would be hard for Xavier to flip Azah. But he would need to be like fully working her, I think, and he's not really. He's like danced around it, but like not using the veto on her. When I think he should be using the veto on her. He should be like going all in on Azah. You know, everything he can do to get her to take him. I do think it's very possible, especially because Big D is screwing up so bad. But this reconciliation from Azah to with Azah and Big D is bad for that chance, because they're back on good terms, and Azah made it clear again that she has no intentions of taking Xavier at this time. Why hasn't Kylan been campaigning harder or longer or better or anything? He is kind of stuck in this zone of not really being told the truth. Now, what he should be doing is talking to Big D. I don't think Big D would be able to hide the fact that he's going to evict Kylan if Kylan just really pressed him on it. But he hasn't. It's, I think, one of those situations where he is hopeful that he's not an idiot and that he is not going to be going home and that he didn't screw up. And so he doesn't want to find out the truth. And so he's not going to press too hard. As long as he's getting reassurance, he's gonna take what little reassurance he has and hold on to it. Who would Azah vote for, Big D or Xavier, if they're in the final two? I think she would vote for Big D. All right. I mean, look, we can take more questions tonight on the podcast. I'm sure we're going to need some questions to fill some time tonight. But that's pretty much what we have for you. Again, short update today. I don't want to go longer than than the content dictates here, to just fill time. So I will get out of here. And again, tonight, find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Taran Armstrong. It's right there on the bottom of the screen if you're watching. And I will be watching Survivor live with you guys tonight. Should be fun. I mean, if you haven't even watched Survivor at all, check it out with me tonight. If you have, but you've never done the watch parties with me, find out what it's like. If you watch Big Brother with me, I think Survivor is going to be more fun to watch than Big Brother because we're actually seeing a lot. It's like every episode's a double eviction. Like somebody's going home that you didn't know about beforehand. So should be fun. And then of course, right after that, we'll go straight into Big Brother. And then right after that, straight into a recap. So plenty of stuff here for you tonight. Check it out. Again, find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Taran Armstrong, or find me on Twitter @ArmstrongTaran. And then I'll be back tomorrow morning to update you on everything that happens today on the Big Brother 23 live feeds. We'll see if we can solve any other mysteries in the house. Or maybe we can get, maybe somebody can explain the plot of OG Dragon Ball. Nobody remembers Dragon Ball. Everyone remembers Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball was good too. Anyway, I appreciate you guys. Thank you for hanging out. And I will see all of you next time.